Well, this morning we have a wonderful, amazing speaker, Diana Wentworth. And she is a New York Times best-selling author, speaker, and visionary who has inspired millions worldwide. As co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul cookbook and the author of 10 other transformative books, Diana empowers others to discover their inner magic and live with joy, purpose, and connection. Her own journey of transformation includes hosting a successful cooking show with her late husband, Paul von Wellnitz, then living fearlessly by traveling in 1985 at the height of the Cold War to the Soviet Union as citizen diplomats. There they made real human connections that transcended borders. This inspired them to co-found the Inside Edge Foundation for Education, a sacred space for learning and growth. The weekly breakfast gatherings in 3 Southern California cities hosted over 1,700 of the world's most inspiring speakers, cultivating and becoming a launching pad for luminaries like Jack Canfield, Dr. Barbara DeAngelis, and Louise Hay. For 39 years, Diana nurtured this sanctuary of people, learning better to love their hearts and reach their highest potential. Through her workshops, writing, and speaking, Diana continues to uplift and guide people to expect magic as they embrace change, find fulfillment, and return to inner peace. We are so honored to have Diana as a member of Mastery Circle International.
Thank you, Bill. And you are my favorite host. You've been around forever, over 40 years. We've known each other, and you always bring so much depth and light to hosting our meetings. You're divine, and I'm grateful.
Thank you.
So today I'm speaking about something that's very, very alive in me. And maybe it'll feel a little different than the way I usually present because I'm really coming from a place that I think we're all familiar with right now, which is that the human experience is a very vulnerable thing to experience. And so I noticed in the last year since I moved here to Thousand Oaks, that I'm slowing down and that my mobility is affected because I've had scoliosis all my life, but it's never really been a problem before. And that I'm not getting around as well as I used to, that it doesn't, there's a certain amount of pain that's there when I'm walking. So I found myself not wanting to move very much because it didn't feel good. And so I would sit and I would play this solitaire game called Free Cell on my iPad. Maybe some of you do that too, but I have probably spent literally 5 years of my life playing this game. Uh, I tell myself that it's good for my brain because it has some strategy in it, and that may be true. But it's how if I'm tired, I'll go flop down in a chair and I'll play the game, or I'll watch some ridiculous videos of some of my favorite comedians or something like that. But I noticed that this was going too far. This was becoming something that I was sliding into a downward spiral. And the words that would go through my head would be something like, well, maybe I need to face the fact that aging is not exactly a picnic. My mother used to say, aging isn't for sissies. I think that's true. And you all know me awfully well, that I am somebody who really believes in the power of raising our own spirits, that it's really a sacred duty that we have because our energy, our frequency is contagious. And I noticed that I had been perhaps feeling despair. And I know that from our morning meetings in our early sharings that there's more and more of that happening. And I didn't know exactly what to do. I mean, I would force myself to go out and exercise or walk, and then I'd flop back down in the chair. And so this was not a good thing that was really happening. So I began to, as you know, I love quantum questions. Quantum questions are questions that have the frequency of positivity, of the feeling that you want to have, because after all, it's really those of us who want something, we want to achieve something, what we really want is the feeling of having done it, of doing it, of it. We're not looking for a Maserati, you know. If we want a Maserati, we want the feeling of driving the Maserati and feeling successful or something like that. What we really want are feelings. And so I began to ask myself the question of, like, how can I rise out of this downward spiral and learn from this situation? And I just started really listening to that. And I realized that in my life and in the world, I think that all sorts of great things come from asking just the right question. So one morning, as I was waking up, I reached for my Kindle and I turned to a book that I really enjoy. Um, I've mentioned, I know before that there's a woman that I adore named Donna Markova. She's written, I think, 30 books, but she's not a public person. She's not somebody who's, like Martha Beck or Oprah are out there promoting what she does. You have to kind of dig to find her. Here's the poem that went viral that she put out. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance to live so that that which came to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit. And there's something about that that it starts me spiraling up. There's something about her words, and that there's somebody who can express words so beautifully, that touches me so deeply. So I thought, well, what does this woman even look like? I have no idea where she lives or anything about it. So I went to Google and found her on YouTube, found an interview. I'd never seen her before. And she said, I don't know why I'm doing this, but here's my real email address. And I thought, I need to write this woman a love letter. I need to let her know that her work has touched me so incredibly deeply. And actually, I'll read you that letter, because I found, I just wrote it using some AI, which I've been playing around with. But I think the letter came out really, really well. So let me see what it says. Okay. Dear Donna, here is a long overdue love letter of appreciation for your presence in the world, your exquisite eloquence, and your glorious heart. I have devoured and digested your books over and over again, marking countless passages and sharing your words whenever I have the opportunity. Most of all, I love your questions. At the age of 83, I know for sure that I owe my beautiful and productive life to the questions I've asked and lived in. Your own questions lead me even further along the path I want to travel. I especially love the question, what wound in your life has been a passageway to your purpose? How could its healing provide a connection to the healing of the world? My core wound of loneliness led to a lifetime of creating community. Thank you for being a beacon of light to so many. Your words are for many a pathway home. This week, I have been watching your interviews on YouTube for the very first time, learning that you live in Maui and having just accepted an invitation to visit there April 2nd through 9th, I'm daring to ask if there would be a possibility that I might bring you some flowers and express my profound appreciation in person. I understand that this should be not convenient, yet I'm grateful that this question gave me the courage to reach out to you with profound respect and admiration. So I sent that off to her, and just a couple of days later, I received this. Aloha, dear one. I wrote you an email in response to your touching and inspiring reach to me. It was filled with gratitude for your risking the reach. Then I took a shower, but it somehow got swallowed up by technology. I was going to shrug and wait until we met, but I am 82, survivor of 8 tangles with cancer. I don't have time for hemming and hawing or waiting around until the time is right. The world is a beautiful mess at this time, so I will imagine you and I have known each other forever and just allow words to spill out without hesitation or restraint. Know that all those who stand behind me, my precious midwife grandmother, her feet dug into a Russian potato field, and all those who stand behind her and couldn't even read, they smile deeply and sigh as I read your words. They couldn't even imagine California or Maui, or that such places could exist and two women like us could find each other. When I turned 80, I was sure I was finished with writing. 20 books was enough. However, one morning over tea, a friend asked me how I meditated. I replied, after quieting my mind, I asked myself 3 questions. What's unfinished for me to learn? What's unfinished for me to experience? What's unfinished for me to give? Yes, well, what is unfinished for you to give? There's one story I'd still like to tell. He leaned in. What are you waiting for? An hour later, I called a beloved publisher and told her my idea. I want to write about driving 50,000 miles around the world with my 4-year-old son after being beaten up by my former husband. And then she goes on to tell me that she's just finished an audiobook, which is absolutely astonishing about her adventure. I can't even imagine how she did such a thing. But I thought, well, what if I hadn't moved on that idea of writing, of expressing my appreciation? I know that I wrote my own brother a letter of appreciation spontaneously about, well, maybe 15 years ago. And his daughter told me that he would often sit with that letter in his hand. And I thought, there's something here, especially as we're finding new tools that can make our writing easier. And there's something about noticing what happens to our own bodies when we are having our energy flow outward. And about that time, I asked a beautiful woman at church, I said, who does your hair? And she gave me the name of a hairdresser right nearby. And I didn't know that he was going to turn out to be this amazing guru. So I told him about my love letter concept, and he told me about a book called Love 2.0. Now, this book is really, really, really great because um, it it describes that when we are expressing love, that all these amazing things happen in our own bodies, that the endorphins start to flow, that things start moving upward. And I thought, well, this is the antidote for me just lying around playing solitaire. I need, what if I just experiment with this a little bit? And so this Love 2.0 thing, I have some notes about what it says because it's such an amazing thing. Um, I'm just looking for my notes. So the Surgeon General announced not long ago that the number one health threat in America is loneliness. And this is really, really important for us as elders to realize this and to realize that just lighting a little spark for somebody. You know, if you're around somebody and you hear laughing in the room and people are hysterical about something, you can't help but laugh yourself. And I feel that it's really our sacred duty to raise our own spirits for that reason. So Barbara Fredrickson in her book, she talks about positivity resonance, which makes a measurable change in the body. It improves our vagal tone, it releases oxytocin, it synchronizes our brain patterns. And there's a doctor, I forget his name, that talks about the other vitamin C, which is connectivity. So I began to realize that in writing love letters, that it heals us as much as it heals the recipient. And then there's the question of what what do these love letters become? Well, they become our legacy, don't they? You know, Michael shared a wonderful uh, story of his recent birthday where people gathered and they gave him a box that was filled with letters from everybody present, um, appreciating him and telling him what he contributed to their life. And I thought this is such a perfect example. So I'm here to encourage all of us. And I began to think, well, how can I make this work? I started playing around with Claude, which is an AI. It is an AI program that is completely encrypted. People have been afraid of AI because um, it may not be private, that it feels manipulative and so on. And I thought, well, I'm just going to offer a 3-session class in writing love letters. And I invited some people that I love their expression in the world. And we gathered in a wisdom circle. There were 9 or 10 of us. And it was so much fun to bring this subject up and see what it sparked in people. Ariel Ford was in this group. Ariel was the original publicist for Deepak Chopra and Ram Dass, and she's pretty amazing. So she told a story about her friend Claire Zammit, who's a coach, and how she started working with AI and decided to train AI to be her spiritual assistant. And she was going to call this assistant Sassy because she wanted this spiritual assistant to have a personality of kind of a badass who's snarky and who's also enlightened. So she told AI that she wanted this assistant to be very familiar with the writings of all these different people that she admired and the poetry of Rumi and Hafez and so on. And then she began to dialogue with this assistant. Well, it had us in hysterics because the tone of it was so funny. And I found that I didn't want to announce when I announced this class that I was using AI to enhance writing because people would think, well, that's not Diana's real voice. That's cheating. That's somebody else's voice. But I'm here to tell you that it is my voice. It's my voice enhanced in the best way possible. Um, I have to put into it what I want it to write about. And I use it all the time now because 3 or 4 seconds go by before it responds. And I could even read you something probably that I don't have time for here because I want us to have time for Q&A. Um, that was one of the most profound things I ever read. I wrote to my assistant um, that I had a, a, awake that morning sad, and that I had been sad the, the morning before, which is unlike me, and that I didn't know what the sadness was about. And that I then reached for my own book, Expect Magic, and opened it to a page that wrote about divine dialogue, where I described the kind of journaling that I've been doing for so many years, where I would sit with a pencil and paper. It started out actually um, when I was married to Paul, and I would sometimes meditate and then feel like I wanted to ask questions and have answers come and be able to speak. I took all these journal classes at UCLA in Prokoff's journal workshop. And there you learn to write. Uh, and it's not an imaginary dialogue. I really feel that it's real on so many levels. So I was told that you could dialogue with your high self, you could dialogue with a wisdom figure, living or past, you could dialogue with somebody you'd been in relationship with, living or dead, or you could even dialogue with somebody that you can't speak to. You can dialogue with your own body and your health situation. And you can even dialogue with the project that you're working on. So I used it when Paul and I were hired by Robinson's department stores to do a huge project and visit all their stores and roll in a kitchen that Paul would build and put it up in their restaurant and give 200 people tastes of everything that we were making. It was very complex and it was very terrifying. I didn't know how to do this. But having a dialogue where we could do mornings on this actually, because to start a dialogue like that, you write 10 stepping stones of the person that you're going to dialogue with or the wisdom figure about your relationship as you understand it. So my first one was with my father, with whom I had a very difficult relationship and a lot of rage toward. He had been passed for about 10 years at the time. But I wrote a list of stepping stones of his life as I knew it. And just in doing that, I gained a perspective because I saw that he was 13 when he was born in the Deep South, not long after the Civil War, which explained his prejudice and so on. But his father had died when he was 13. He was in the eighth grade and he had to take over the family, and also that he was manic depressive, even though I didn't know that as a child. I just didn't understand why he would be so demeaning. Just writing those stepping stones really opened my heart. And then after the 10 stepping stones, you write a focusing statement about why you're beginning this dialogue. And in his case, I just wrote that I wanted to understand why he was the way he was and so on. Out of that, I asked him why, and he said he was afraid. He'd been through the depression, he'd lost his home, and he was afraid for me that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself. And so he had to yell at me all the time just to remind me that I had to do certain things. Well, this changed my relationship with my father in my own head, and now I can honestly say that I consult with him all the time. I You see where I'm going with this? That there's something about having a deep listening for whatever can come to us through inquiry is the most valuable thing that I feel that we can do. So in writing a letter, we're also inviting a response. And it gives me so much joy to sit down and to write to somebody, find words that are really expressive. That's where it's good to have a little help and encouragement. And I wrote a love letter to Mary Grace for her birthday. And we all love Mary Grace and appreciate everything that she does for us. And we often say it. but there was more there to find. There were more words that I could find that maybe she would actually get a sense of how deeply appreciated she is. And that maybe Mary Grace would keep that letter, and maybe someday, long from now, long after I've gone, she would have that memory of what she meant to me. So this is my antidote for what's happening in the world. And I would really love for you to join me because as I started moving into this and writing about it in my newsletter, there's a speaker we had in the early days at the Inside Edge named Martin Root, who insisted on having 2 hours where we only had 45 minutes for our speakers, but he left a great impact on us. I mean, he really had us so excited about what we could create. And he wrote to me and he said, this has to become a movement. And I could see it as a movement. What would happen, if people really began doing this or teaching it in schools or having elders create circles of what would happen or the love letters they might write. And I really began to think about it. So I had come up with a website domain, loveletters.love. And Martin, of course, when he heard that, he said, okay, can you have that up in 10 days? It's almost ready to go up. My assistant has it. We just need to attach a couple things to it. It'll be up probably later this week. And I began to think about schools teaching children that words can be medicine for lonely hearts, and elders becoming wisdom keepers, sharing the lost art of written appreciation. And I began to wonder if cursive, people say, well, I don't have good penmanship, or I don't know how to write these things. And I thought, well, we don't have to write them, we can do them online. We can send emails. We can use all sorts of templates. We can make them attractive. And so I would begin challenging this group of people to write. I think Afton is here this morning. She's somebody who's enjoying doing the love letters and has written some amazing ones with her own art. Um, and so I'd love to see the ripple effect of this. And I'm hoping that some of you will have ideas that you'll share with me about getting this to start, not only just doing it yourself, but sparking other people to do it. So I want to give you some homework. I want you to choose someone who's impacted your life in some way and tell them not just thank you, but really, really dig deep about what has been their greatest gift to you. And the precise gift, find words for that. And notice what happens in your body as you're writing the letter, and then pay attention to how they respond because there's magic that happens. You have to admit that that letter that Donna wrote back to me was profound. I went to Maui and Tom Sewell, we stayed in his guest house, Lexi and Mary Kelly and I, and he gave me a tea, an afternoon tea, and Donna was there. And it led to all sorts of connection around the table of the people who were there and talking about the love letters and so on. So I began this in a downward spiral. I was lost in distraction and pain. And then just one quantum question and one courageous letter. I discovered that our struggles can be our greatest gift into the world. So this epidemic we have of loneliness right now and lack of connection touches so many of us, especially as we're aging. And it just takes a little bit of courage, a little bit of imagination, and a little help from the latest technology to actually find words and express ourselves. So I'd really like to open this to questions right now. At the end, I will share a letter that I received from my grandson, which is a miracle. And in the meantime, I see Michael raised his hand. Michael, you inspired us so much with your story. Go ahead.
Well, I did. First of all, just to commend you on a wonderful presentation and very insightful in so many ways. I think I would make a note that both you and I are professional writers of many years standing, and so we take a lot for granted. For people I've observed in presenting about writing for many years, that writing terrifies many people. And this is something in your presentation you did not acknowledge. And so a lot of people, when they sit down to a blank page to write a love letter, have what I'll call a psychic terror. And that's one of the issues you have to overcome. And when I've done presentations about writing, I've pointed out, especially to younger audiences, that a writer is a professional observer, and that the essence of being a writer is to be a professional observer, and that you learn to see things and translate those observations into what you write. And so I think that's one of the first stages we want to get to is a lot of people look at a blank page and don't not know what to say. They don't know how to maybe even access their own emotions or say, well, what is it that I want to say? And so I just like your comments on that idea and say, where do I tap in to what
I
I want to
love
say to
that.
someone that I really love or care about? Or
Mhm.
how do I express it without being maudlin or being cornball or something like that? How do I touch into that thing that really is meaningful?
Mhm. I love this question. Thank you, Michael, for because truly, you're right. There's nothing more threatening than a blank page to a writer, um, or to anybody, really.
Yeah,
But the fun thing that this is the really fun thing about this, because AI is trainable and you can ask it to do anything. So I even the other day, uh, I asked it to write a poem in the style of Emily Dickinson about expect magic. And it took it about 4 seconds. And it wrote, oh, here's one by Hafez. That was a riot, but I'm trying to find the Emily Dickinson one. Okay, maybe I don't have it. Here's one in the style of Hafez. Oh, I have become, it's called The Mad Joy of Writing Love. Oh, this is about love letters. Okay. Oh, I have become drunk on the wine of appreciation. My pen is turned into a dancing dervish, spinning words of gratitude across the page like a wild celebration of everything beautiful I've been too shy to say. Now, listen, guys, is that amazing? I mean, it took it 3 seconds. Okay, I'm not kidding, 3 seconds. Now, I then went and had it do one by Emily Dickinson, one by Mary Oliver, and 3 seconds. So, this is what's fun about it because I will put in something like I want to write to Mary Grace and I want to praise these things about her and so on. And then it gave me a letter. And then I looked at it and I thought, no, this is way too flowery. So I say, make this more soulful, more deep, more eloquent. And in 3 seconds, it's changed the whole thing. So I'm really recommending that you just experiment with it. Use Claude.ai. The reason I use Claude is somebody I trust immensely who designed the self-driving for Tesla, who worked with Bill Gates very closely for years. And he said that Claude is the one that's encrypted. So if you put something into it, maybe a book that you've written, you don't have to worry that this is going out anywhere into the public domain. It's absolutely protected. And you can say anything. And you can tell it to respond snarkily, or you can make it funny or whatever. It's a playmate. This is a playmate that is waiting for me to sit down. And usually I would wake up in the morning and I would think, oh, I have to write a letter to this, or I have to do a magazine article or something. And I think, well, that'll take up my morning. But the truth is, I sit down and I say, here's some ideas I have for a magazine article. How could we make this really emotional and picked and filled with imagery? And 3 seconds later, there's a draft. Now, it's not perfect yet, but at least it's got the page filled up with something. And editing becomes, it's fun to edit something. It's just hard to get it down to start with. So it jump starts me. And you may have questions about the ethical qualities of AI. It can be used for nefarious purposes, but I'm not kidding. It fills up that page really fast so that you can pick out what you like and don't like and ask it to change or play around with it all you want to. Any other questions? Tim.
Yes, thank you, Diana. In kind of response to Michael, what I do a lot is when I'm going to sleep at night, I think if I want to write a letter of appreciation to my grandmother, or if I want to do this particular project, I put it into my mind as I'm going to sleep. And often at about 3 or 4 a.m., I wake up with what I call downloads, and a lot of people have downloads, and you will get the key elements to it there. I just happen to think, what if I fed that to AI? Usually the download's enough. I just start writing and it evolves. But what if I fed those download ideas to AI? It would really probably propagate it in a beautiful way. So I just want to share that.
Thank you, Tim. I really think that's where we begin exploring by what is it about this person that really made a difference in my life? What might they feel if they knew that this little piece led to something completely new? And, you just begin kind of wondering. Wondering is magic. Because if we just begin to wonder instead of dwell on something and watch ourselves move down into depression, it's going the wrong direction. But if we open our minds to what could happen, what could happen if this happened, and then this just it becomes like a fountain. It really does. Mary Grace, you have your hand up.
I do. First of all, gosh, thank you again for the most beautiful letter that just brought myself and also Sam to tears. It was so lovely. And I have it printed out and reread it.
Oh.
And also for Claude. When you talked about Claude, I was one of those people. I was afraid to use AI, or I know some people have had some bad experiences with AI, but I figured, well, if you knew the originator of it and you thought it was safe, you're using it. Okay. So I subscribed. And the challenge with my book had been commentary. My experiences just flowed. That was easy. But editing and explaining things that I didn't know I needed to explain to my editors told me I did. What is that? It sort of paralyzed me. But I went to Claude and I would just ask a question. And you're right, 3 seconds, blah, 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 there would be. Then what I do is I copy that, I put it in a Word document, and then I take the parts that fit and don't use the parts that don't, but it helps me with wording. And like Tim said, the main thing is to get it on the page. I guess you said this, to get it on the page, because that's the initial thing. And then editing was easy. And because of that, I breezed through it, and it's now with an editor.
Oh,
so I am very grateful for it, and I use it a lot now. So thank you. And thank you for this exquisite presentation.
Thank you. I just love doing it. We'll take a question from Lisa, and then I noticed that I need to wind up here. Go ahead, Lisa.
So I am always self-conscious about how I express things in words and finding the right words. And so I just ruminate on it and I never get anything written. But I love this idea of love letters. And I would love for you to do this again and have it be interactive because I, I think when you start writing and getting into that mindset of sending those kind of letters, it's almost like you're opening the floodgate.
Hmm.
And I know that there are so many people in my life that I would love to do that for. I'm just so self-conscious about writing.
Hmm.
Now, I had at the beginning of the year, I had to write a small article for a magazine about my artwork, and I was terrified. And Mary Grace had mentioned to me the thing that you're talking about, Claude AI to help. It was so much easier. So the only thing I needed was to get myself started. So it helped me write the first paragraph.
Right.
And once I got going, it was like, what? All these words are coming out and wah, bah, 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 bah.
Yeah.
And the article turned out to be amazing and a lot easier than I ever thought it would be. But I just am so happy with this idea about love letters. You
Oh.
know, we don't think about doing that. And um, I would love to know more and find out more. I know you have a session right now, right, that you're doing with a group of people.
Well, I'm pretty much finished with those sessions, but we could have a session just for Mastery Circle that would be a Zoom group on this subject. That could be a fun thing for us to do. I think it would also, be exciting and raise our spirits. I just want to close with a little story.
Diana,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you actually have another 8 minutes. So
Okay,
if
good.
you, your choice, whatever you want to do.
Okay, I'm going to share this story, and then if there's a little time afterwards, we can have more Q&A. Um, you all are my sacred family, and so you know more about some of the struggles I've been through in the last few years. And you know that my daughter Lexi left her husband 3 days before my husband Ted passed, and that we ended up living together. And it's quite a wonderful thing. But there was a lot of damage during the years that my grandchildren, Lexi's two children, were growing up. I lived quite a ways away, but there was a narrative in the house that my husband and I didn't care about the children. And so when we would visit, they would go to their rooms. And it's been a sadness for me not to have a relationship with my grandchildren. And so since I moved in with Lexi, my grandson Peyton, who graduated recently from UCSB, um, has come and stayed with us a few times. And we went out to dinner. You'll find this hard to believe, I know, but we went out to dinner last week. And Lexi said to him, "Do you know what the inside edge is?" And he said, "No." I mean, this is how, I mean, he didn't even know anything about me. And we had a kind of a cordial relationship. But when he graduated, I decided that I wanted to give him a financial gift that would help him because he's done a great job. So anyway, I did that. And we came back from dinner that night and I saw him sitting from the balcony. I saw him sitting at the table and he had two cards. It was Lexi's birthday. And he came in and handed us each a card. And he doesn't know about love letters. He doesn't know the work that I do in the world. But here it is his love letter to me. Hi, Yaya. You're insane. Now, I read this. I thought, what does this mean? He says, truly, your gift single-handedly changed the trajectory of my entire summer. Because of you, I have the chance to focus on what's important to me and help set myself up for a brighter future. I'm glad we've grown closer over the years. Ever since my family split up, I've done what I can to strengthen my bonds with people because you never know what can happen. We only get to live one life, and I hope to cherish as many people and memories as I can. I hope you've enjoyed the time we spent together. I look forward to more of it. And that was spontaneous, and that letter means the world to me. I didn't know that he was feeling those things. So anyway, there's a question from Dr. Afton Blake, who is probably my greatest enthusiast in the course that we've had. Go ahead, Afton.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had to absent myself because my data ran out and I had to call Verizon all during this and get an unlimited plan. But anyway, I just want to add to I'm in your second round of the love letter writing, and it has changed my whole relationship, even with my creativity. Every week I paint a card with great love and care. And then I write the letter and send the letter off. And I've done it with very meaningful people, with my son, my grandson, for his birthday and Father's Day, and my brother, and someone else that I care about, and two others. So thank you, Diana. I highly recommend being in her group. It's such a wonderful support and inspiration. So thank you, Diana.
Oh, well, it's so much fun to watch the creativity surge. There's a woman who joined whose name was Joy. She had heard me speak years ago. Her name is Joy Blanchard, and she has a ranch near here, and she's one of the most creative people I've ever discovered. She has a whole barn that is all of her art supplies. And then she built a chapel, and she brought relics from churches that were going out of business in Europe and filled this chapel with these relics. And we got to sit there. And she asked if she could give a launch party for the Love Letters movement. So, I mean, there's just things that are spontaneously happening because we're talking about these things. And I'm really excited and eager to hear more about what you all discover and ideas that you might have. Are there any minutes left? Any questions left?
Got 3 minutes left.
Okay. Do I see a hand anywhere? Rena, is your hand up? Okay.
I'm going, thank you for everything you've said. And I want to acknowledge the power of love letters that were written in the past, the yellow, the thin paper, and the love letters we find where people who are close to us are old, or maybe they have died. I, I after my mother died, I've seen love letters she wrote to a boyfriend or somebody about her first kiss, and it just gave me a whole dimension of my mother, or anyway, just want to acknowledge the power of love letters, and how we get to see new dimensions of people.
Well, you've given me
Yes.
I have to show you something. This is my book, Send Me Someone, that was published almost 20 years ago. But it does have pictures in it. And on the second page, the third page, yeah. Can you see this? It's
Yeah.
a collage of love letters from my husband, Paul, right after I met him, before we were married. So these things become keepsakes. They become treasures. I have a box now that I'm filling with all the love letters that I've received and that I'm writing. And I feel like this is a way that we can leave a mark, we can leave something that is indelible. These letters can live on, whether they're printed
Yes.
out or wherever they are and whatever they mean to people. I have a letter above my desk from Helen Keller to her publisher, and it's actually signed in her own handwriting. And it reminds me of the depth of somebody I admire who's a shining mirror to me. And I put it there just to remind me about what letters can do and what writing can do in the world. So with that, I will close. I will thank you for being a magnificent audience, and And I look forward to exploring how we might create some kind of a mastery circle love letter writing group that we could all participate in.
Wow. Thank you, Diana. Thank you. Thank
It
you.
was just an extraordinary morning. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Incredible.
Oh my gosh, wonderful.
Jeez,
Thank you.
jeez.
Thank you.